An absolute clinic in how to lose a football game.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? This is your Saturday evening post-game live following the senior day debacle here at Carter Finley. NC State falls by a score of 29-19 at the hands of the Duke Blue Devils. As always, I am Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs, and our post-game live is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, and new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with just a $5 bet that wins. If you want $150 in bonus bets, head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started. Post-game live here, Saturday evening. It's now 7:30, and NC State got absolutely embarrassed on senior day at the hands of Duke again. 29-19. Kenton, you had hinted at this potentially coming over the course of this week. You said it might be, and it kind of feels like it will be, a CJ Bailey disaster class. But it doesn't just extend only to CJ Bailey. It was an offensive masterclass. That's the coaching. That's the execution, the O-line, the wide receivers, the running backs in some points of this game. Just a brutal watch for NC State fans. Absolutely brutal.
What do you really walk away from this game thinking? And I want to talk about the CJ Bailey disaster class thing because I had a feeling, hey, they'll disguise their coverages pretty well and it'll give CJ Bailey some problems. The disguise blitzes and the pressures and the way that there were free rushers, even when we had more blockers than they had rushers. It's just like, how do we get out schemed like this at this level? And then even when we do scheme it up right, we had 4 or 5 drops tonight? The red zone execution was pitiful, but so was the play calling. This is, I'm not going to lie to you and say like, hey, I'll be completely honest. After game 1, I was like, there's some rust being knocked off. Okay, whatever. After game 2, it hit me. Oh, this is who this team is. This is not a team that is ACC championship bound. And Grayson and I had discussed both off air and on air, hey, Grayson had more optimism than me and was like, hey, Clemson's your most important game. And I'm like, no.
Found out pretty quick, didn't we?
Game by game, every game in front of you is your most important. And so my expectations dropped for this season rapidly. But I mean, damn, it's like we're hitting the basement at this point.
Yeah.
Because, in this game, you're going up against a team that struggles to stop the run. And what did we do on the ground against these guys? 84 yards on 29 rushes. And I know some people would think, well, Kenton, that includes sack yards against CJ Bailey. CJ Bailey was sacked twice tonight. 2 times. So I don't know how much y'all want in terms of those yards. Even if we added in 30, 40 yards, let's be really generous and pretend both of them were super sacks that took away 20 yards apiece. Even if we added in 40 yards, that's 29 yards or 29 rushes for 120 yards. And mind you, that's adding in 40. That's good for what? 4 yards per carry? What we actually had was 29 carries, 84 yards, 2.9 yards per carry. I am thoroughly, and when I say thoroughly, I mean thoroughly disappointed by this because our defense showed up in a major way. They showed up in a major way, and yet, it's time after time after time again, we refuse to execute in the red zone. Time after time after time again, we move the ball well between the 20s, but when it's time to punch it in, when it's time to find the end zone, when it's time to do the thing, we just, can't do it.
The way we repetitively crawled into a turtle shell when you get in the red zone or at least near the red zone, that needs to be studied. And I mean ASAP. Because not just this game, but like especially in this game, the way we've seen this happen time after time after time again this season, when you are so inefficient and ineffective within the red zone. It's only a matter of time before you completely piss down your leg. And we've seen it earlier this season. We got the full display of it tonight. Well, we had, I think, 5 red zone trips?
Yeah.
6? Was it 6?
I believe it. I remember 5, but it might have been 6. They might. You know
We
what?
had
It
4
was 5.
field goals. We
It
missed
was 4
one.
field goals, the missed field goal, and then there was a touchdown as well. So 6 trips, 1 touchdown.
If you can't get down the field and execute the way that the entire drive had been leading you to, it's just, I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect at this point?
Yeah.
And you may already tell by the tone of both of our voices, this is going to be a tough one. Because to be honest with you, we're at the point of the year. What else can you really say? This team is who they are. They are flawed in an extremely concerning amount of areas, mainly on offense. Because, yes, to your point, Kenton, I thought defensively we did fine tonight. The defense kept you in this ball game because otherwise it could have been a lot worse. And so credit to the defense there. I thought they bent a lot tonight, never really broke. I mean, at least in my opinion, but the offense, how many times can you get the ball back with a sliver of momentum and then poof, 3 and out, you give them the ball back and then Duke's right back there on the field. That is the complete recipe for this end result that you got tonight. And that's disheartening. I mean, it gives you that pit in your stomach, but it's also like, yeah, I mean, who didn't see this coming to a certain extent here? And I think
just a quick question here. Just a quick question, Grayson. Who do you keep from this offensive staff? If you are the AD, if you're the head coach, if you're the one calling the shots, who do you keep on this offensive staff as it currently exists?
I mean, I'll be the first to tell you I'm not sure any seat should be safe. I would say, and you'll probably disagree with me, I would say maybe 2J, because I think O-line's a position where I think you get a little bit more grace than other spots, like an offensive coordinator, for example. I think I'd be okay if 2J returns, but I think you'd come into year 3 on a little bit of a hot seat. Robert and I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can, I don't know how you keep him. I don't know how you can bring him back next season. This has been a complete debacle of an offense this year. And it's kind of funny because you saw the warning signs of this in the early portions of last season. And perhaps the way that we sorted things out at the end of the season, he gets a lot of credit for that. And I think he should get credit. But when you revert back to those struggles and you're constantly spinning your tires in the mud and you're sending CJ Bailey on QB draws still repetitively.
On 3rd and 8. On 3rd and 8.
In week 10, when you don't have a backup plan for your quarterback, I mean, what else can I really say here? So, yeah, long answer for a short story. I don't know who you can keep, honestly, Kenton.
I think Joker Phillips, if I was making the decision, I think his job would be safe. But everybody else, hey, it's been real. It's been fun. It ain't been real fun. Y'all boys be safe. Y'all boys be safe because this performance on the ground is, again, 29 rushes for 84 yards
against Duke's defense.
Only one run. Only one. I could not believe this until I went through the play-by-play and saw it. Only a singular run of 10 yards or more all game. One.
And we did have another one, but guess what? Who would believe this? It was called back because of holding. When have we heard that already this season?
Yeah, this performance offensively, you keep putting guys in a position, and this is why I say the defense, they did their part, because you keep putting those guys in position time after time after time again. You keep putting them out there to get stops time after time after time again. They got scholarship guys over there too. Yep. They got scholarship guys over there too. At some point in time, that offense may figure out a play or two as well, and so, it's so. The worst part about it, it's night and day from last week to this week.
Yeah.
It's night and day. Against Stanford, did we see any drops?
Maybe one, maybe. Tonight, I think I counted at least 5.
And to me, drops have nothing to do with the defense. That's what I mean by, with NC State, it's about you. It's about you. Because how many games have we seen? How many times have we seen, oh, we do it, we get it the right way, we do it the right way, and then we just have that one critical error, that one disaster moment where it's like, well, damn, we're cooked. You know, I hate to be this, but here we are again being NYU because, I mean, all you really have to look forward to at this point is next year.
I do want to touch on that after a quick ad read here before we get deeper into the weeds. Our first post-game live sponsor is LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are just right for that role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They help you hire professionals that you simply cannot find anywhere else. On LinkedIn, over 86% of small businesses can get a qualified candidate within just 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, middle portion here of our Saturday evening post-game live. NC State drops senior day 29-19 at the hands of Duke. Kenton, you talked there about, I lost my train of thought, but what I wanted to get into is when you lose to Duke in this fashion, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago when I originally gave my hot take on where I could feel a shift in the wind that this team has a shot at going 4-0. But we did do that episode on what if they finish 4-0, what if they finish 0-4, what if they finish 2-2. There's three different scenarios here that all connect to roster retention, NIL giving and or taking in this offseason. And I do believe that caught up, or I guess tied to going 4-0, you give yourself a shot for another successful offseason, so to speak, in talent evaluation, getting into the portal, getting what you need rather than what you can take. And when you lose in this fashion to Duke, and then, all the wind just immediately gets ripped out of the sails that you started to put up last week, I don't know where it goes from here. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm not exactly one to give you the doomsday speech, but I think a ton of momentum was completely ripped out from underneath NC State tonight in the way that you performed on this stage against Duke. And I'm going to say this about Duke, and they'll probably clown me for saying this. I don't think Duke is a better football team than we are. I don't. Offense or defense, I don't think that Duke is better than us. However, they played much better than we did tonight. We played awful. And so when you give Duke enough opportunities to beat you, yes, a team like Duke is absolutely going to beat you. But when you get humiliated on a stage like this at home on senior night, God bless. What do you expect at this point? You're muted.
But you know what? It's not about whether or not these teams are better than us. These teams have been more consistent in showing up.
Exactly.
These teams have been more consistent in showing up. There is not any point in us constantly reverberating this because we've said it all year, and this team has proven it all year that when they are on, when they're rolling at their highest clip, they can compete with anybody. But when they are not, when things are for whatever reason, when you are having the drop problem, when you are having even the things that went right in this game, you had moments where you're like, what under God's green earth is happening? Even the defense, where you're like, hey, they're standing on their heads, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Sure, but on one of the most pivotal drives of the game, you allow a conversion on 3rd and 20. 3rd and 20. This team has a terrible case of can't get right-itis, and it's insane because, again, this is the worst I've seen with no injuries, no major injuries outside of the one to Grayson McCall. I can't think of, hey, this starter's down, this starter's down, this starter's down. Guys are, for the most part, healthy. But like we've talked about time and time again, guys who it's supposed to be their bag year, they're the ones blowing it at times. Davin Van is one of the only seniors that has played, that has led by word and by deed all year long. One of the few. Shown up every single time. You never have to worry about what he's going to do. But everybody else, I'm I'm so it's disappointing, but the worst part about this disappointment is I can feel the apathy of the fans setting in.
Yeah.
I can feel it, and it's been earned. This is not an apathy that was like, oh man, like we were a really good team and we lost one game. Now everybody doesn't care anymore. I always said I will give grace for situations where you're just outmanned and outgunned. Clemson and Tennessee's budget against ours, crazy discrepancy. You're not going to make that up with spit, grit, and the power of friendship. Even still, I'd like to see you be competitive. Even still, I'd like to see you win one of those here and there. But I get it. Now, my thing is Syracuse, Wake Forest, and Duke. They outspending you?
No.
They got bigger NIL packages than you?
They do not.
Come on now. Come on. So, this is rough. This is rough. And thank you to the folks in the comments for reminding me. Caden Fordham would have been very valuable in this game. But that's the worst part about what I look at with this game. Because as bad as we were running the ball, Duke was even worse.
Yeah.
27 carries for 31 yards. We stopped the run. The defense did what they were supposed to do. And then what do we look up and see? It's so embarrassing to do this on senior night. It's so embarrassing to send these guys out like this. And again, specifically to Davin Van, brother, you deserve better than this on your senior night. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you did not get better than this. Because this is just embarrassing, man.
I'll take it a step further. Of course, all of this falls under the umbrella of, drum roll please, coaching. This falls under coaching. And Manny Diaz, in his first year at Duke, outcoached Dave Doran in year 12 at NC State. He outcoached him. And I think, unfortunately, there's so many different instances where you could put insert coach name here and it would still be true. Not just this year, but over the course of a 12-year tenure. And again, Kent, you talk about that apathy, it's going to get ramped right back up. You better believe it. We won big against Stanford last week. That was great. But when you lose in this fashion to Duke the week after, you already know where this is headed. Yeah. And some of the coaching decisions I saw tonight, like everyone wants to talk about the drive where we burned, 2 timeouts, all of which just to get 3 points.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? On top of the incompetence of the play calling. It was just a comedy of errors from quarter 1 to quarter 4. And lo and behold, the only touchdown we scored of the entire night was in the fourth quarter. Why does this keep happening? When all of a sudden we have to find some urgency, push the ball down the field, we start doing it, and then we finally score. But listen, shout out to Wesley Grimes, because without some acrobatics, probably shouldn't have even been a touchdown. I don't want to dog on CJ Bailey here. That throw was awful. And Wesley Grimes couldn't have been more wide open. That's the kind of night we're talking about here, when everything is just seemingly going against you.
Yeah.
Ugh. We're tired of having this conversation. Not in year 1, not in year 6, year 10, year 12. We're still doing this.
I'm okay having the conversation in year 1. I'm okay having the conversation where we're looking at a ton of injuries or whatever the case may be. I am not okay having this conversation in year 12 when this is supposed to be the team. This is supposed to be the team, and yet here we are. It's just such a deflating moment. It really and truly is. And again, I'm very aware of the Signetti is like resetting people's expectations for what a first-year coach is in real time.
Yeah.
And even if you look up at Syracuse with Fran Brown, like they're kind of crashing and burning now that the tape is out on them a little bit. Just got destroyed up there at Chestnut Hill. With that in mind, I sit here and I wonder to myself, yes, Doran has led this team to a level of stability and a floor that is higher than it's ever been. But I sit here and wonder to myself, is that floor worth keeping around to prevent a higher ceiling, perhaps?
The
Or,
$6 million question.
or, or, like Nebraska with Bo Pelini, do you bottom out once you get rid of him? Is the question that must loom large on Boo Corrigan's mind, because, and again, y'all know me, y'all know Coach Doran is the reason that I came to NC State,
Right.
and Cookout, but that's another story for another time. The trades were $5 back then, but
Who among us?
but I think that the biggest thing that I wonder with this team is, again, why are there so many things that are not glitches? They're features.
Yes.
Red zone ineptitude is not a glitch with this team. It's a feature.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, red zone, the performance in the red zone against Stanford was rare. That was like, what is this? Because if I do recall correctly, one of the keys against Stanford was the red zone percentage. And we're just going to keep that going the rest of the way, because between the 20s, we do all right. But as soon as we get down there, it's like, I'm just a wee little baby. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. What are we supposed to do? Like, it's, again, it happens too repetitively for it to be a glitch.
Yeah, to that point, I don't know if I've ever said it on here publicly, but I'm sure this is not going to be mistaken for anything else. You talked about the ceiling for Coach Doran, and I do think there is a realness to the fact that he has brought us to a level where 8 to 9 wins is the expectation, and that anything less than that is a failure. Now, this year, of course, was supposed to be different. It wasn't, and so it is an abject failure. However, when you talk about that ceiling and then maybe even the floor, I don't think it ever gets better than what we've already seen. I'll be frank about that. I think we have seen both the floor and the ceiling for Coach Doran. I think the attitude and temperament of this coaching staff, and like Kenton was just talking about, when you have these bugs that you think are bugs, but actually, no, they are features to the way that your offense is ran, or the way that your defense is ran, or the way that you clock manage. When you see that, not just 1 year, but over the course of a 12-year tenure, you get a very clear read on what you're getting out of that guy as your head coach.
Yeah.
I think this is, we have seen the heights of the Doran era. And I say that as respectfully as I possibly can, but I think we're all on the same page here. I think that is, we have gone as high as we'll go. I'll say it that way. Because when you have this conversation, these post-game lives where it's like, well, I think we're the better team, but we never really seem to play like it. So are we the better team? I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
When you have that conversation multiple times a season, I think you have your answer. Now, bigger picture, do I think he's going to go anywhere? I think there's a couple dollar signs that say otherwise. But when you get into the offensive staffing and maybe even the staffing of the entire team, you can't go into next season with the same composition and just magically expect it goes differently. Because guess what that is? That's the definition of insanity. You can't just go into next year and expect it is all different. There needs to be massive, and I do mean massive, changes, because you also have to factor in NIL now and the transfer portal now. All of that is still going to ride on what this coaching staff and how they handle it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot bigger things at play here, and there's far more questions than we have answers for.
Well, I disagree. I think the answers are there. I just think the answers are answers we don't like.
Well,
I think that the questions have been asked and answered, and we are sitting here looking and saying, questions asked and answered, the answers are just not favorable. But I will say this. I will say this. And I hate to feel like this, and I hate to say this based upon what we've seen. But I truly don't recall a time where we had as much talent at the skill positions coming back as we do this year. Except maybe Devin Leary's last year, which was cut short via injury. That's the only time I remember. I believe we had Bam Knight, Ricky Persons, and Emeka Med, all those guys. And, it was like, well, damn, it's really, really a moment where I look forward and I say, it feels like it should get better. But in this moment, it's like, but does it? But does it really?
Exactly. One more quick ad read before we get you out of here on Saturday evening. Our second live sponsor is FanDuel. NFL fans, maybe you'll have a better day tomorrow on Sunday, and you can do this on FanDuel. That's why it's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first pesky $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in just one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page that you place all of your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. Again, you get started with that $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Did you lose? Oh, I'm back.
Okay, I was
29 to
about to say,
19
did we
loss.
lose me or who got lost there?
Lost both of us momentarily. 29 to
Gotcha.
19 loss at the hands of Duke. Oy vey. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I think it was after we had lost to Syracuse, and we had discussed what else really is there left to play for this season. And then at first, my answer was pride because it looked bleak back then. And then it was like, well, if you find a way to go spinning,
Is it me or is it you? What's happening here?
I don't know. Hello?
Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I'll spin it back.
Yeah, you're talking about pride.
The hope was you could go 8-4, retain some of that roster, kick up more momentum, kick up some NIL. That would have been at least an honorable way to finish the season. You lose tonight, that train derailed. So from here on out, really all there is left to play for is pride. At absolute best, you can finish 7-5. Think about that based on how we came into the season. We're talking about 10 wins. We're talking about going to Charlotte. We, at absolute best, you can finish 7-5. Absolute worst, boy, I don't know if I want to discuss that right now, but I mean, how did we get here with the talent we have, the coaching staff that we thought we had? Here we go again. We are the school of next year, and here we are already talking about next year.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine, man. I really don't. It's tough for me to even venture and let my mind kind of wander into that territory of what happened this season, what all went wrong, right? Like if we were performing a diagnostic on this team, like we were mechanics or something. It feels like that moment in a movie where or in a show where a guy gets in his girlfriend's car and literally every light comes on. That's what this feels like, because it's like, what? There are so many things that went wrong, and the only silver lining of this game and of this season for me is the young guys continue to perform well. I mean, CJ Bailey played, I would say he played better than I expected, because I expected a multi-turnover game. He didn't even have multiple turnover-worthy throws. Was he super accurate today? At times there were struggles there, but he didn't have a ton of turnover-worthy plays, that's good for what I look at. And then I look around and I say, well, the young guys in terms of skill position, again, they're excited. But if we're doing a diagnostic on this team, the seniors underperforming, the issues that we thought were going to be issues went largely unaddressed this offseason. And they came back to bite us in the behind, because we talked about linebacker talent, let alone linebacker depth. We didn't even discuss, hey, if Cade Fordham goes down, what's next? Who's next? Didn't even discuss it. And yet we're having to live in that reality. And to me, those are those are the biggest things I look at where I'm like, this is why. This is why you get what you get. You end up where you end up because, again, just when I can't get my elder statesmen to lead the way by word and by deed, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And that's what we saw tonight again. There were many, many moments in terms of the coaching that were subpar. There were many moments in terms of execution of the coaching that was subpar. And it's just like, at what point does this team decide that it wants better? But hell, you got 2 games left. At this point, all you got left to play for is, like you said, pride. Beating the Dirty Foot Club. That how much do those bragging rights mean to you? Beating Georgia Tech, saying, hey, Georgia Tech just beat the top team in the conference. They just beat the guys who were the guys. We're going to show that we are good enough to beat anybody. That's all you got left.
Yeah, we'll certainly learn, I guess, a whole lot more here in these next couple of weeks. NC State will go into another bye. We just came out of one. We go right back into another. We'll see how much of a difference that may or may not make down in Atlanta, Georgia. Not this coming weekend, but of course the weekend after. Another break for NC State football. I hate to break it to some people. I think that means it's officially basketball season. And it's painfully here to admit because Duke just put us into this. I think it's officially basketball season. Football is now, I don't want to say over, but you get what I'm getting at here. It's more or less over. All you have left to play for is pride and for each other. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to find a way to do that because otherwise you will finish 5-7. And if that happens, well, is it really much different than where we are now? I couldn't really tell you. Anyway, thank you all for joining us here Saturday post-game live. NC State loses 29-19 at the hands of Duke. Be sure to hit the like button. Drop all of your comments in the comment box. I'm sure there will be a bajillion of those. Mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll catch you all back here on Monday for big picture takeaways from this game and where exactly they can go forward moving on from here. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you Monday. Go Pack.
Go Pack.